Rick, one thing I know you've been working on is the EPA issue. And I know this is a kind of it's a delicate thing because on the one hand, the non-attainment issue is we want to protect our environment. And so, there's some, speak on the environmental side of, well, if we don't, if we have those standards, if we have those higher standards, then we have a better chance of protecting our community. But I was really interested that one of the things that John Norquist talked a lot about at our dinner Thursday night was when he was mayor, they kept saying, well, we need to get on this list of, suffering, communities so that we can get this money and so that we can get this special attention. And he said, I don't want to be on a list. I don't want to be on any list that says that we are potentially somehow deficient. And so I guess, one question, for you and for others is how do we both maintain that sense of confidence about how we are as a community and yet still uphold that sense of standards about what we want to do to protect the environment that we love and the place that we love?
So on the air quality issue, I think you focus on that, the sulfur dioxide. I just met with EPA, air quality in Washington. It looks like they're going to give us an additional year, and we've had sulfur dioxide is very localized contaminant, and there has been a facility closed right there by the monitor, so we've got new data for 2011 that's below the standard. And they run on a 3-year average, so if we go more year, chances are we're going to have the ability to not have the non-attainment. We don't want to be on that list. That would impact every industry that we're talking about here in any of their expansion, and they would have to spend millions of dollars to do additional work that they wouldn't have to do otherwise. You still have to meet the new standard, but being in the non-attainment area is even more. It could affect our bond ratings, which would cost us money and cripples our ability to do things. So we're probably going to get out of that, but one of the things we have to do is we have to keep that plant that closed. And so I'm working right now to find another location, and they're being very cooperative. But we have to find a location on the river that has enough water. We're working on that.
Yeah, there's some very positive things to be here. There's like the 7 plant change.
Yeah, and that's icing on the cake, actually. The timing of that didn't influence EPA's decision to work with us, but that was icing on the cake, and that is just much now right now in Hanover County, people are breathing air that is well below the sulfur dioxide. That's a good thing to know. We've got monitors that the county's put in. We'll be getting those results soon. I think they'll be even lower than what we're getting right there at 421. But that's still a concern, and it does tie into what we're talking about, industrial recruitment. There's a balancing act there. I mean, our old industrial I-2 standard said this is where you are supposed to put your noisy, smelly, dangerous, hazardous waste places, and we can't have it. And that's 1969 standard. So we're looking to rework that, and that's we're working with Chris and his department on that. And that's going forward. We're going to have to be a little bit more careful in what we're doing. But I think that everybody understands that. Verizon is a great example of something that works for us. It's still a balancing act. We're a small county. Looks like we're going to avoid this particular crisis. We need to be careful that we're proactive so that we don't come up with another.
Anybody's got a question for the audience?
I'd like to generalize a little bit and maybe get specific at the end about how do we attract more fine industry that will populate the airport and will give us the additional high-quality employment, and what are the impediments to that you see? Billy, I think you ought to give us your comments about that.
Sure. Well, I'll give you a good example of how we're trying to take advantage of attracting those kinds of positions. We are doing some research and development on the aerospace industry. We're always looking for the next best Recently, everybody knows about the Boeing announcement that's going to Charleston, South Carolina, where they're going to be building the Dream Liner. And in 2008, Spirit Aerosystems took a fuselage manufacturing operation to Kinston, North Carolina. Well, both of those are huge manufacturers in a high-tech industry. Most of those industries and suppliers have always been on the West Coast. But now we've got two major manufacturers coming east. So we took a look at our strategic location between Charleston, South Carolina, and Kinston, and our research has revealed that suppliers to those industries need to be within 2 to 3 hours of major manufacturers like that. So we think with our highway infrastructure, our connectivity to Wilmington, holds a lot of promise and potential to attract those kinds of industry, those kinds of jobs. So we're concentrating on that particular industry. We're researching and developing it. We're talking to people on the West Coast, the suppliers that have been working with Boney and Spirit Aerosystems, and we think we stand a good chance to attract those suppliers to the Wilmington area so that they can be close to those two major manufacturers. So that's the kind of thing that we're working on.
Do you think they benefit from a foreign trade zone?
It depends on where there's a logistics supply chain and stuff. But typically, yes. So I think we're strategically in a great position on that particular industry. But those are the kinds of things we're always studying and trying to figure out what is the next best thing that our region could attract. We think that has a lot of promise. Those are good paying jobs, very clean industry, high-tech industry, and we think with our quality of life here, we're going to be able to attract those folks from the West Coast. And we've made some visits out there, and every one of the industries that I talk to want to get out of California because it's so hard to make a profit in California now. And so that's a lesson we learned too. North Carolina does not want to get the reputation that we're hard to deal with and that you can't be profitable in North Carolina because your reputation precedes you.
Have you sought and are you receiving political support at a level that will assist in that decision being made?
Yes. I mean, we work very closely with our allies at the city, and state, county, and state level. But for the most part, these kinds of efforts are a lot of hard work, a lot of research, development, study, knowing the industry, researching the suppliers and manufacturers, knowing what drives them. And, that's a lot of that's what we do at WFD. And so that's part of our job. But no, I mean, we've got great relationships with our cities and counties that we contract with to do economic development. So it's all a team sport. Economic development is not one-on-one. It's a team sport. It requires a lot of help and cooperation from our members and our allies and those who support us financially. So we're very fortunate to have that kind of private sector support in this region. But that's just one example of some of the things we're reaching out to do. Thank you.
Anybody else have their hand up? No? We're not doing controversial,
So I guess one of the questions that I have, not as a developer, but listening to much of this discussion over the last several days, is if we were to work on one thing in the next 6 months, what's the one impediment to the kind of development, the kind of economic development that we want in the region, in downtown? Is there that's good for the quality of life, the environment, and the economy? What's the one impediment that we can remove?
I think Dave touched on it. The cost of money right now is unbelievable because of how long it takes to get something approved and turn it around to where you can get your money back. And if we could find a way, if we pick infill development, we could find a way to fast track that process. So right now, I mean, it's just ridiculous how long it takes.
it down to, if I had to build 8, if the city had to have 8 condominiums built downtown, and it needed to start in 2 weeks, I mean, I am still impressed with how quickly Verizon can build. I'm still, I mean, I give a lot of credit, but you know what? That guy was going to roll heads, and everybody behind that guy was going to roll heads if something slowed up Verizon. And I think there's just not the sense that it's necessary. Dave, what do you need a condos for? I mean, and besides, build them over there because it's already ready for you. Don't build them downtown because it's easier over there. I think that's what I struggle with. If there was a war, you're damn straight we get it. I mean, I'd be the first one out there. And anyone that got in my way from preventing me from protecting my country, we killed them. That's what we do.
Rick makes a great point. Speed to market is what most businesses are looking for. And there's several things that are holding that up right now. Financing, permitting. So if we could streamline those processes and enable these people to get operational quicker, that would be huge.
Excuse me, 1 second. Tracy is waiting. Okay, go ahead.
Well, anticipate a little bit of what Tracy may say. When you say streamline the process, because I've said that before, and I've had my hands slapped. It brings up to mind people saying, well, circumvent the rules. And that's not what I know you meant, and that's I think that there's a way to do that intelligently. Specific to downtown, this is a little bit of a different issue, but land use and zoning, you can hear your dates hard, and Kay and I talked about this a lot, is right now the way the ordinance is structured for downtown is a little bit punitive. It actually is almost trying to discourage growth rather than encourage growth. Because there are so many things that you can't do rather than saying what you can do. And to get something done, you have to be such an advocate for yourself to go in and fight with each individual entity that wants to tell you why you can't do something. And even if you want to do a really good project, or do the right thing, if you do all the right things, you're still going to need to find someone to say no, then you go back to the beginning and go through that process again.
Or
it
worse.
becomes very difficult.
Or worse would happen.
Well, and just to close the loop on that, my one suggestion to that dilemma is the institution of a civic design center, which not to create another layer of bureaucracy, but to create an entity. They have this in most major cities now. If you go to Charleston, they have one. If you go to Raleigh, Asheville, it serves a dual role. One as an advocate for private entities that want to do the right thing, that are bringing the types of projects that we want to our area. And we identify the projects we want because we've already through the public process. If they're doing the right thing, then it should be easy for them. We should try and make it easy for them to go through the process and get what they need to do that type of development, that type of growth that we all want to see. If it's a green project, if it's a positive economic development project, then let's lay the groundwork for them to get pretty quickly. The Civic Design Center can do that and serve as an advocate for that entity within the public, kind of public-private liaison, if you will. And the other part of that is they can help to work with the public entities that are doing projects like the CFEDC, the city, the county, when they do a public project, to make sure that the project is of the caliber that the private industry and the private sector expects to see built into the public arena. That is meeting the needs of the infrastructure long-term for business development, growth, ability needs. That it looks the way that Dave needs it to look for a city street to lead to his new building downtown. And it does all those types of things. And basically trying to close the loop between the public and private sectors.
Chris, how long has that proposal been on the table, and what has held it up, and how do we get this done?